She was told she was too emotional to lead. When the promotion she worked so hard for was handed instead to a man who shamelessly took credit for her ideas, she said nothing. But beneath her quiet exterior, something was brewing. Something no one saw coming. Then came the day of the merger. The CEO stepped up to introduce the new head of the company. As she stood there, calm and confident, the man who had stolen her chance choked on his coffee. Because in that moment, everything changed. Jenna Morales, 32, had always played by the rules. She arrived early, left late, and poured everything she had into her job as a senior project manager at Galvix Technologies. She was the kind of employee who fixed problems before they exploded, mentored new hires without being asked, and kept her cool even when things spiraled. But none of that mattered the day her boss, Marcus Hale, called her into his office. It was supposed to be the day she got promoted. Everyone knew it. Jenna had led the 3 most profitable launches in the last 2 years. She had built the team that turned their outdated client software into a sleek, competitive product. And yet, as she sat across from Marcus, who barely looked up from his coffee mug, she felt something shift in the air. He cleared his throat. "We appreciate everything you've done, Jenna. Truly. But after careful consideration, we believe Steve is a better fit for the director role. He's steadier under pressure. You're talented, but you tend to get a bit too emotional." Her jaw tightened, but she forced a smile. "Emotional?" He gave a half shrug, the kind people do when they pretend it is not personal. "Leadership is about balance. Sometimes you get too attached to your ideas. We need someone who can make tough decisions." What he meant was that Steve, the same guy who once asked her what a KPI was, knew how to nod, smile, and echo whatever Marcus said in meetings. Steve, who casually dropped phrases Jenna had crafted in her reports and claimed them as his own. Jenna had let it slide, thinking her work would speak for itself. Apparently, it hadn't. Jenna walked out of the office with a dull ache in her chest. Not because she was shocked, but because she wasn't. She had seen it happen before, to other women, to quieter voices. But what made this sting worse was the smile Steve gave her later that day in the break room, like he had just pulled off the greatest trick of his life. She said nothing. Not to Steve, not to Marcus, not even to her friend Talia, who worked in HR and had always warned her that being excellent didn't always mean being recognized. She kept her head down. For a while. But Jenna was not the type to stay down for long. She knew the company was on the verge of something huge. A merger with an international tech conglomerate, Zentech Systems. Rumors were swirling. People speculated layoffs, restructuring, massive shifts in leadership. Jenna paid attention, especially to the name that kept surfacing in internal emails. Alexander Rhodes, Zentech's CEO. Unlike Marcus, Alexander was known for his unconventional hiring choices. Word had it, he promoted people based on results, not handshakes. Jenna had done her research, and she had a plan. When the announcement came that Galvix would merge with Zentech in 6 months, most people panicked. Jenna? She worked harder, not louder, smarter. She rebuilt the failing launch timeline for the flagship app no one wanted to touch. Quietly, efficiently. And when Marcus fumbled during a board presentation, she stepped in with last-minute visuals that saved the pitch. He took credit again. She let him. But this time, she copied Alexander Rhodes on her project status updates. Casually, subtly, with language that made it clear who had done the work. And then she got an email from Alexander's executive assistant, a private Zoom invite. It was short, professional, no explanation. But Jenna knew. The call lasted 37 minutes. Alexander did not blink as she laid out her strategy for improving cross-platform integration and reducing client churn. He asked sharp questions. She answered all of them with precision. At the end, he simply said, "Thank you, Jenna." This was illuminating. He ended the call without saying what it meant. 3 weeks passed. Then 2 more. Nothing. Marcus continued to smile like he owned the building. Steve walked around like he had already picked out the drapes for his future corner office. Jenna said nothing. Not when she stayed up until 3 a.m., fixing a bug that could have tanked their beta. Not when Steve took her chart and presented it at a product briefing as his own. She watched. She waited. And then the day of the merger came. The office was buzzing. Executives from Zentech were in the building. Alexander Rhodes himself would be speaking in the main auditorium. Jenna wore a crisp navy blue blazer and a calm expression. She took her seat in the second row. Marcus was at the front with Steve, both of them beaming like they had just been knighted. Alexander stepped onto the stage. Tall, confident, no notes in hand. He did not need them. The man radiated authority. He welcomed the teams, praised Galvix's innovations, and thanked the leadership for their hard work during the transition. Jenna caught Marcus giving a proud little nod, soaking in the praise. Then Alexander paused. "And now," he said, "I'd like to introduce the new head of North American operations." Marcus straightened his tie. "Please welcome Jenna Morales." Marcus froze. Steve turned so fast he nearly dropped his coffee. Jenna stood up slowly, calmly. She walked to the front as a polite wave of applause filled the room. Alexander extended a hand. She shook it firmly. Marcus's mouth opened, but no words came out. And when Jenna looked at him, she tilted her head slightly, her voice cool and steady. "You were saying something about being too emotional?" Marcus choked on his coffee. For a moment, the room stayed silent. Even the polite claps tapered off into awkward shuffling. Marcus looked like someone had yanked the ground from beneath him. His face turned an odd shade of red, eyes darting from Jenna to Alexander, then back again, like he was trying to piece together a puzzle he never thought existed. Jenna turned to the crowd and gave a short, composed nod. "Thank you. I'm honored to take on this role and continue doing the work that matters." The words were simple, but every syllable cut through the air like glass. She walked off stage and took her seat again, this time in the front row, where leadership belonged. She didn't look back at Marcus. She didn't need to. After the event ended, people flocked toward her, some with genuine congratulations, others with the kind of nervous smiles reserved for people they used to underestimate. Talia from HR rushed up to her, eyes wide, whispering, "You knew, didn't you?" Jenna just smiled. "I knew enough." By the end of the day, Marcus's office door was shut tight. Steve avoided her entirely, but the real storm hit the next morning. An internal memo was sent out. Effective immediately, Marcus Hale had been reassigned to a different region, a polite way of saying pushed out quietly. His position had technically not been eliminated, but everyone could read between the lines. He was done. Jenna didn't celebrate. She just got to work. But something unexpected happened that afternoon. She found a small white envelope on her new desk. No name, no sender. Inside, there were printed screenshots, emails, Slack messages, private ones. They were from Steve, messages where he mocked her work ethic, called her neurotic, claimed she used the sympathy card to manipulate male leadership, said he deserved her job and that she was just a diversity hire. She stared at the papers, hands still, expression unchanged. Steve had slipped. Badly. Jenna didn't take it to HR, not immediately. Instead, she picked up her phone and called someone from Zentech's legal department. "Send me your policy on workplace retaliation and hostile work environments," she said calmly. "I believe I have something relevant." By the end of the week, Steve was under investigation. By the next Monday, his badge access was revoked. Word spread fast. People started treating her differently, not out of fear, but respect. Because she wasn't just someone who had gotten lucky. She was someone who had stayed silent while they underestimated her, studied the cracks in the system, and then walked through the front door with every receipt in hand. But the biggest surprise hadn't even happened yet. 3 weeks into her new position, Jenna was invited to a private dinner with Alexander Rhodes and 2 board members from Zentech. It was meant to be informal, but over cocktails and appetizers, Alexander leaned forward and said something that made Jenna sit up straight. "We're launching a new division, Asia-Pacific expansion. We want a woman to lead it. Someone who can scale complex systems, build teams fast, and handle pressure without ego. You've already proven you can." She blinked. "You want me to run the division?" He smiled. "We want you to build it from scratch, from Singapore. It's a promotion. Global executive track. You'd report only to me." It was more than a promotion. It was a career-defining move. Jenna said nothing for a second, not because she was unsure, but because her heart was thudding in a quiet, powerful rhythm. She had played the long game. And now she was being handed the entire board. "I'll need a week," she said coolly. "But yes, I'm interested." After the dinner, she sat in her car in the quiet parking garage and finally let herself exhale. All those months of being overlooked, laughed at, stolen from, all the quiet nights and loud silences, she had turned them into leverage. Back at the office the next day, she found another envelope on her desk. This one had a return address. It was from Marcus. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Jenna, you were always better than me. I just didn't want to see it. I hope one day I work for someone like you. Or maybe, for you." She read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it in her drawer, just in case she ever needed a reminder of how far silence could carry power. Jenna didn't tell anyone about the Asia-Pacific offer, not even Camille, her best friend at the company since her intern days. She needed time, she needed clarity. Most of all, she needed to know who was really with her, not just clapping because she'd finally won. That week, Jenna noticed Camille acting different. She'd always been supportive, quick to defend Jenna even when others didn't. But now her texts were shorter, her smile a little too forced. And during one meeting, Jenna caught her glancing down at her phone and smirking, right after Steve's name lit up in her notifications. Something wasn't adding up. Jenna didn't jump to conclusions. Instead, she did what she'd learned to do best. She waited, quietly. One night, around 11 p.m., Jenna was still in the office working on the Asia-Pacific strategy proposal. Everyone else had left hours ago. She stepped out to grab tea, and when she returned, her screen had gone dark. Nothing suspicious until she clicked her mouse and saw a USB drive sticking halfway out of her laptop port. She hadn't left it there. She pulled it out. It was labeled in cheap red ink, "Training Docs," except Jenna had never seen it before. She slid it into a clean, offline laptop from IT and opened it carefully. Her eyes widened. The drive contained screenshots, drafts of her Asia-Pacific proposal, budget breakdowns, even her pitch slides, but with the logo replaced. Camille's name was on them. It hit her like a truck. Camille was trying to steal the expansion plan. Jenna's chest tightened, not from panic, but pure betrayal. Camille had smiled in her face, sat beside her in strategy meetings, and then taken everything she had built and tried to pass it off as her own. The next morning, Jenna didn't confront her. Instead, she requested a meeting with Alexander Rhodes, alone. By noon, Camille was called into a private conference room. By 2, her security access was revoked. That afternoon, Jenna found a handwritten note shoved under her office door. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was messy and rushed. "You think you're untouchable now. Just remember who helped you in the beginning." She knew it was Camille. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the audacity to rewrite the truth. That night, Jenna finally called her mother, the one person who'd always believed in her when nobody else did. "You ever think about walking away from it all?" she asked. Her mother laughed softly. "You? Number, you don't walk. You build. You win." Jenna smiled, because she knew it was true. The next day, she walked into the executive boardroom with her final answer. "I accept the offer," she told Alexander. "I'll move to Singapore, but I have a condition." He raised an eyebrow. "Go on. I want to choose my team, top to bottom. No corporate hand-me-downs, no politics, just people who are sharp, hungry, and honest." He leaned back in his chair, impressed. Done. She flew out 3 weeks later, and by the time the next quarterly shareholder call happened, Jenna's name wasn't just mentioned, it was highlighted. Zentech's Asia-Pacific launch had exceeded projections by 40%. Her face was on the cover of 2 industry magazines. She had done what no one expected, again. But success came with another twist. 6 months into her role in Singapore, Jenna received an email from a new competitor that had just launched across the street from Zentech's new regional HQ. The subject line read, "We hear you build empires. Want to build one with us?" Attached was an offer: stock, freedom, and triple her current salary. Jenna stared at it for a long time. Then she shut her laptop, walked out to the balcony of her high-rise office, and looked down at the city she now commanded. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about proving herself. She was thinking about legacy, and the question that echoed in her mind was no longer, Will they give me a seat? It was, why sit in when I can own the table? Jenna didn't respond to the competitor's offer right away. Instead, she spent the next few days observing her own team more closely, the way they operated, the way they respected her leadership. The freedom she had fought so long for finally felt real, but power, she had learned, didn't just expose others, it exposed you to the world in ways you couldn't predict. On a Thursday morning, while preparing for a quarterly review call with Alexander, she got a message from an unfamiliar number. "I need to see you. It's urgent." She froze. There was only one person that initial could belong to: Marcus. She didn't reply immediately, but curiosity won. Later that evening, she met him at a rooftop bar near Clark Key. He looked smaller, not physically, but in spirit. The arrogance he once wore like a tailored suit had vanished. "I'm not here to beg," he said. "I'm here to warn you." Jenna didn't blink. "Warn me about what?" He slid a folder across the table. Steve and Camille weren't working alone. The leak, the sabotage attempts, it was part of a plan, one that went higher than we thought. Someone at corporate helped them, and that person is still there. Jenna's throat went dry. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I lost everything trying to beat you," he said, "and you still won. So maybe it's time I stop protecting the people who used both of us." She opened the folder. Inside were email threads, strategy documents, and call logs, all tied to Nathan Brower, the global VP who had once publicly praised her while quietly pushing back on every big decision she made. Nathan had been funneling internal information to Zentech's competitors for years, and Camille's attempt to steal Jenna's expansion plan, it was greenlit by him. He had promised her a job at the competitor firm in exchange. It was corporate espionage, and it went deep. Jenna sat back, stunned. She hadn't seen it. She'd been so focused on the obvious enemies that she never considered the ones who shook her hand with one and stabbed her with the other. That night, she didn't sleep. She forwarded the folder to legal and scheduled a confidential call with Alexander. The company launched a quiet investigation the next day. Within 72 hours, Nathan was terminated. No press release, no goodbye email, just gone. But then something unexpected happened. A leak hit the tech blogs. An anonymous source claimed Jenna had manipulated her way into power, used gender optics to push out male colleagues, and weaponized HR to silence her critics. The phrasing was sharp, intentional, and clearly designed to destroy her credibility. Jenna's face was suddenly on every tech newsfeed, not as a success story, but as a scandal. Her inbox exploded. Investors demanded answers. Alexander called her directly, voice cold. "Did you leak Nathan's involvement to the press?" "No," Jenna said, "but someone wants me to look like I did." There was silence. Then he said, "Fix it, or we'll have no choice but to distance ourselves." Just like that, everything she had built was hanging by a thread. She knew one thing: whoever leaked it was still inside the system. She called in a favor from a trusted friend in Zentech's cybersecurity division. Within hours, they traced the leak to an internal IP address. It came from her own executive assistant, the same assistant she had hired, trained, helped through a messy divorce, the same woman who had baked her cookies on her birthday. Her name was Maya. When confronted, Maya didn't deny it. "I was promised a regional director role," she said. "If I helped bring you down, I needed the money." Jenna didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood up, looked her in the eye, and said, "You didn't just betray me. You betrayed every woman who worked twice as hard for half as much." Maya was gone by morning, and Jenna was left with a shredded reputation and a decision to make. Take the competitor's offer and start clean? Or stay, fight, and prove once again that she couldn't be broken? She chose neither. Instead, she did something no one expected. She resigned, but not before sending one final email to Zentech's board. In it, she detailed everything: the internal corruption, the quiet sabotage, and how despite it all, she still delivered historic results. She didn't beg, she didn't threaten, she simply attached a pitch deck. The launch of her own firm. Jenna didn't wait for approval, she didn't ask for permission. Within 3 weeks, she launched her startup, Novalume, with 2 of Zentech's most brilliant but overlooked engineers, both of whom had quietly resigned the day after Maya's exit. They believed in Jenna's vision because they had seen what she was capable of when no one else believed in her. The launch made waves. Investors who had once been silent started sending offers. Former clients of Zentech began reaching out. The media turned. The same ones who once painted her as emotional and calculating now ran headlines calling her the Tech Phoenix. But Zentech wasn't quiet. In fact, within a month of Novalume's launch, Jenna received a cease and desist letter. They claimed she had stolen proprietary algorithms and breached non-compete clauses. It was nonsense. She had been careful. Every code line, every strategic idea she brought into Novalume was either hers or public domain. Still, the lawsuit came. Zentech wanted to drag her through the mud. Publicly. Expensively. The night before the court hearing, she got a call from her old nemesis, Marcus. "I want in," he said. "You're gonna need someone who knows exactly how far Zentech's willing to go." Jenna hesitated. "Why should I trust you?" "Because no one else hates them as much as I do." She didn't answer right away. But when she walked into court the next day, Marcus was by her side. Not as a partner, but as a witness. Under oath, he revealed the internal manipulations, how Zentech often encouraged employees to copy from competitors, and how Nathan had a history of threatening employees to sign NDA-covered lies. The courtroom fell silent when Jenna's lawyer played a recording, one Maya had accidentally left on Jenna's backup drive, where Nathan admitted to bribing Camille to frame Jenna. The judge dropped the case. Public support for Jenna exploded. But right as she felt she had finally pulled ahead, something happened that knocked the air out of her. Her bank accounts were frozen. An emergency audit had been ordered on Novalume by the Federal Trade Commission. The accusation? Money laundering through a shell investor group in Singapore. Jenna knew nothing about it. But when she looked into the investor group that had wired Novalume its biggest early payment, her heart dropped. It was connected to a company owned by Alexander's wife. The same Alexander who had told her to fix things quietly. The same Alexander who had gone radio silent since her court win. She was being set up. Again. Only this time, it wasn't about her being emotional. It wasn't about gender optics. This time, it was about power. She had become a threat, and threats had to be neutralized. She knew she couldn't fight this alone, so she did something bold. She called the CEO of Zentech's rival company, the same one who had offered her a job months ago. Instead of taking his offer, she proposed a merger. Novalume's technology plus his infrastructure equals a new juggernaut that could compete on a global scale. He didn't answer right away, but the next day, Jenna received a public statement from him, one that shocked the entire tech industry. He announced the merger and named Jenna as the new CEO of the combined company. The announcement hit Zentech like a bomb. News spread fast. Employees started jumping ship. Zentech stock dipped. Clients walked away. And then came the moment Jenna had been waiting for. At a global tech summit hosted in San Francisco, where dozens of companies were present, Zentech's leadership was scheduled to meet investors and partners to announce a new initiative. But minutes before Alexander could step on stage, the keynote speaker was introduced. It was Jenna. She walked out calmly, head high, wearing the same color blazer she had worn the day she was denied the original promotion. Alexander was in the front row. He choked on his coffee the second he saw her. Jenna smiled, then said into the mic, "You told me I was too emotional to lead. You were right. I cared too much. About people, about ideas, about building things that last. That's why I'm standing here. And you're sitting there." The audience erupted. Zentech's board quietly removed Alexander 2 days later. And Jenna? She didn't just win, she rewrote the game. Jenna's journey was anything but easy. From being underestimated and betrayed to rising stronger than ever, she proved that resilience and integrity can break through even the toughest walls. Her story reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories come not from taking shortcuts, but from standing firm in the face of every obstacle. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible real-life tales that inspire and surprise.